The G20 summit, recently convened in New Delhi, attracted the world's most influential leaders. However, the notable absence of China's President Xi Jinping sent a clear and striking message. China is done with the existing world order, and it is ready to challenge it. This unexpected move marks a significant shift in China's foreign policy trajectory. Now, in previous years, Xi Jinping seemed focused on positioning China as an alternative to Western dominance. Now, China is taking a more confrontational stand, signaling its readiness to unite against the United States and its partners, along with the international institutions which China sees as West-centric. Xi Jinping's divergence from the established world order has been brewing for quite some time now. His predecessors, from Jiang Zemin to Hu Jintao, worked to integrate China into the US-led global order by participating in some foundational institutions like the World Bank and the World Trade Organization. Even during the period of deteriorating ties with the United States under former President Donald Trump, Xi Jinping managed to keep a tenuous connection with Western institutions. They were part of the spring meetings of the IMF and the World Bank. They also played a leading role in the WTO and, of course, attached great importance to the United Nations. During the recent past, however, Xi Jinping has grown increasingly hostile towards the existing order and more determined to reshape it. He has actively sought to develop alternative institutions that China can lead and control. One such example is the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, which was established to rival the World Bank. Additionally, Xi Jinping has also promoted competing international forums like the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the BRICS Forum, which includes members like Russia and Iran. While Xi Jinping is willing to retain some of the established institutions, the United Nations for example, he wants to try and repurpose them towards meeting China's global objectives. The G20 no longer fits into that plan. The absence of Xi Jinping at this significant summit is, in a sense, an attempt to try and undermine the credibility of the G20. The Group of 20 comprises the United States, its allies, and countries that are more amenable to a West-oriented and a Western view of the world. And therefore, it is far less susceptible to Chinese influence or manipulation. Furthermore, it's also shown a commitment to making global governance more inclusive, exemplified by the recent welcoming of the African Union as the latest member of the G20. Now, that is an action that Xi Jinping views as competition for his own agenda to garner support in the global south. In lieu of the G20, Xi Jinping has been advocating for and pushing rival entities which he believes China can dominate or fill up with friendly nations. One notable group is the BRICS alliance, which consists of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Xi has been actively lobbying for an expansion of BRICS membership, and that materialized during the group's summit in Johannesburg back in August. 6 additional countries, including Egypt, Ethiopia, and Iran, were invited to join. Now, this expansion, as noted by the economist Hung Tran, aligns with China's aim to transform BRICS into a platform for advancing its geopolitical interests and fostering anti-US activism. Additionally, Xi Jinping is also planning a third Belt and Road Forum later this year in China. Participating countries in China's Global Infrastructure Initiative, primarily which are developing countries, are expected to send their high-level delegations to Beijing. It is a gesture that is reminiscent of tribute missions sent by foreign states in honor of Chinese emperors back in the Qing and Ming dynasties. While world leaders convened at the G20 summit in Delhi, Xi Jinping will soon be hosting state visits from the presidents of Venezuela and Zambia. Both are countries that are heavily indebted to China. This endeavor to try and build a rival bloc occurs even as Xi Jinping appears to be distancing himself from the Western world. Despite welcoming 4 senior US officials to Beijing within just the last 3 months, from the Secretary of State to the Treasury Secretary to the latest being the Commerce Secretary, Beijing, though, is yet to reciprocate by sending its own representatives to Washington. Now, this asymmetry suggests that Xi may be open to continued engagement with the United States only if the US were to take the initiative. Now, Xi Jinping was not present at the G20 to engage even in a simple handshake with President Joe Biden, let alone engage in more substantive discussions. Xi Jinping's absence may be inadvertently working against his own objectives. By stepping aside, the Chinese leader is essentially ceding the stage to President Biden and his partners, who can then exert their influence at the summit without the competing presence of China. Biden had a clear opportunity to engage with Xi Jinping's BRICS counterparts, including South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, Brazilian President Lula da Silva, as well as, of course, other key players from the global south, Indonesian President Joko Widodo as well. There was a telling photograph of Biden with the leaders of the global south, including the leaders of India, Brazil, South Africa, etc., flanked by the World Bank chief. China's decision to skip the G20 constitutes a significant snub to this year's host, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Now, Modi's support is crucial if Xi is hoping to reshape BRICS and SCO. Moreover, this gesture coincides with Beijing's release of an official map, that's what it calls it, and that map has stirred tensions not just in New Delhi, but also in Southeast Asian countries. It includes contentious territorial claims in the South China Sea, the entirety of the Indian state of Arunachal Pradesh, other disputed areas in India, as well as an island that was previously agreed upon to be shared between China and Russia. The map dispute underscores the potential for Xi Jinping's nationalistic pursuit of global power, which is undermining his ambitions to lead a new bloc opposed to the West. Some analysts suggest that BRICS is unlikely to emerge as a unified counterweight to the United States because of divergent views among member states. Xi Jinping may view the world as a binary competition between China and the United States, but the emerging global order is far more complex. It has far more centers of power, each with its own objectives and its own interests. China is not guaranteed to be the primary beneficiary of this evolving world order, nor can it assume that the global South will rally behind its banner for a new anti-colonial struggle. In opting to skip the G20 in Delhi, Xi Jinping is not only signaling his opposition to the West, but he's also displaying an arrogance towards emerging powers, which he's hoping to unite to rally around China. To succeed in the grand geopolitical game, Xi Jinping needs to be actively engaged rather than opting out. You have to be in the room before you read the room.